Then we're getting some flashing news that's coming in. The Delhi High Court, in fact, they've ruled against the CAG audit of Discoms, so that should be a big relief to Reliance Infra. The stock was already buzzing around. Now it's moved to the high point of the day. Pull up Tata Power as well. That one as well has moved higher. The Delhi High Court had sought CAG audit of Discoms, alleging financial irregularities. So now, in fact, what we know is that that audit will not be going through, and that's why those stocks are rallying with some relief. Remember, in the past, we have had arguments on this front. The Delhi government, though, holds 49% in these Discoms, and they're infused capital as well in the past. But I think we have with us Ashmit Kumar. He's been tracking this case very, very closely. Ashmit, give us all the details.
So what we are picking up at this stage is that the Delhi High Court has held in very, very clear terms that a CAG audit cannot be allowed for private enterprises, especially in this case the Discoms in question. The Discoms, of course, include one Discom of Tata Power, the other, of course, where a 51% stake is enjoyed by Reliance. So essentially, the three Discoms in question are Tata Power Distribution, as well as BSES, Rajdhani and Yamuna. Now, importantly, these Discoms were facing the brunt of the CAG audit in January when the AAP government had been elected to the Delhi. They had instituted a CAG audit of their accounts. Subsequently, a case had been filed. They had challenged, the Discoms had challenged this in the Delhi High Court, arguing that, in fact, that they are private enterprises, that the controlling 51% stake is held by private enterprises, and that they are not answerable to the government in terms of being liable for a CAG audit, that the CAG is acting beyond its mandate in seeking to audit private enterprises. And that contention, importantly, has been upheld. In very clear terms, the Delhi High Court has provided that these are private enterprises, that the CAG audit, that the CAG Act does not provide for audits of such companies, and as a result, a major relief coming to these Discoms. Of course, as of now, it's also important to point out that this might not be the final page as far as the battle between the Discoms and the government of Delhi is concerned. The government of Delhi, as of now, has a very clear remedy of filing an appeal against this order before the Supreme Court. That's for a later date. We'll, of course, be getting reactions from them as well. But for now, big relief coming in for Delhi-based Discoms. Back to you.
Stay on, Ashmit. Yes, we can see the relief in these stocks. Look at the way Reliance Infrastructure is rallying. It's up nearly 8.5%, while Tata Power too is inching higher. Big relief. Let's get in a reaction to this. Pankaj Sharma of Equirus Securities joins in. Hi, Pankaj. Your initial reaction, and also if you could explain why Reliance Infrastructure is reacting so much more than Tata Power.
See, I think, of course, it's a big relief. In fact, this is something which has been in overhang for quite some time. And also, if we look at why Reliance Infra is reacting more versus Tata Power, it's more linked with the issues and concerns people had about that company particularly, because both these companies were under a question mark in Delhi Discom, and Reliance Infra more so, because the contention was that in terms of actual reporting of numbers and billing, there is more of a problem in Reliance Infra than Tata Power. So if the CAG audit doesn't happen, it's definitely good for both the companies, but much more for Reliance Infra, because concerns were more on Reliance Infra as far as Delhi government point of view was concerned.
All right, Pankaj, just hold on to that thought. Let's get in Harshvardhan as well, who joins us currently. Thanks so much, Harshvardhan, for joining in. We're getting some breaking news now that, in fact, the Delhi High Court has upheld the Discoms plea. That was with regard to the CAG audit on these Discoms, and that's why, in fact, we're seeing a big relief on Reliance Infra as well as Tata Power. What's your first take, Harshvardhan?
Well, undoubtedly, it's a big relief.
Yeah.
But one should also try and understand that the manner in which the tariffs for these companies are set, these are firstly set in an extremely transparent manner. There is a public hearing which is conducted by a quasi-judicial body, and asking their books of accounts to be reviewed after a quasi-judicial body has assessed it was in a way certainly not appropriate. And therefore it comes a great relief for these two companies in specific, which are sort of having a joint venture with the Delhi distribution company.
All right, Harshvardhan, but did you factor in any kind of negative impact of this now that it's not going to come about? Do you believe that in fact there could be some change maybe to your estimates or the likes? Our colleague Ashmit just told us that in fact yes, they can go ahead and they can appeal in the Supreme Court as well against the Discoms. But did you factor in any kind of negative impact?
See, per se, the CAG audit never had any overhang on the tariff setting mechanism for these entities, which is actually quite critical for their earnings and the cash flow thereof. What is essential is how efficiently the regulator sets up the tariffs. And frankly, the tariffs have not been greatly revised in Delhi. The manner in which they need to be revised, considering the strain on the cash flows for these companies. So, although this particular order does not change the earnings estimate per se, I would closely watch as to how the regulator goes ahead and assesses the tariffs for these companies, because they are carrying unrecovered costs, or what you call as regulatory assets, to the extent of almost 20,000 crores, three entities put together. So it definitely has an impact on their recurring cash flows.
Okay, so it could maybe benefit or impact the recurring cash flows. But Pankaj, come in on this. Would you change your estimates on either of the two companies, Reliance Infrastructure or Tata Power, on the back of this overhang getting lifted?
See, I think it's still not final, because I think there is still a possibility and a very strong likelihood that this case will go to the Supreme Court. And also, since the whole process is dependent on a regulatory return to these companies, I think, of course, on technical grounds, it can be refused that CAG audit is not justified, it should not happen. But if the case goes to Supreme Court, and since this is the issue which impacts almost 220 million of population, it might be possible that there could be a review to that. So it's still too early to say that this is final. But yes, for the moment it's a relief. But any change immediately is not possible and should not be done, I think.
All right, Pankaj, what's the current price targets that you have on both these two stocks, Tata Power as well as Reliance Infra?
See, we don't have these companies under coverage as of now. We are looking at them very closely because they are very important in the sector. But purely in terms of our coverage in power sector, we like Torrent Power and JSW Energy more. Reliance Infra and Tata Power are not in the coverage as of now.
Okay. So, Harshvardhan, coming to you. So just to put it very simply, because the draft CAG audit, at least according to the leaks, it suggested that these companies inflated assets, they had indulged in financial irregularities. The government believed that if the CAG does the audit and these things come to light, the Delhi's power tariff would have come down and the process would have been more efficient. So it's basically the downside has now been moved away, because had the CAG audit taken place, possibly maybe these companies would have to lower their tariffs. Is that what the fear in the market was, and now that downside is getting lifted? Or the risk?
I think the investors do understand that the tariffs are not assessed by the CAG, and these are assessed by the DERC, which is an independent body. But definitely, if CAG, comments that there have been irregularities in the books of accounts, the whole tariff setting process itself gets questioned. And therefore, one will also start doubting the numbers which have been reported historically. One will start doubting the sanctity of these numbers. And to that extent, if such, negative, the risk of such negative remarks being made is taken away, those issues those issues will never be opened up. And to that extent, it brings a cheer to these companies. But as I said, a lot depends going ahead how the tariff for these two entities is going to be determined by the state power regulators.
Okay. If I understand you earlier said that you won't change your estimates on either of the two companies, but because this overhang is lifted, would it warrant maybe an increase in the valuation? Multiple that you sign?
See, frankly, the current valuations don't price in bankruptcy for either of these companies. Okay, specifically Tata Power, where we have an official rating. Definitely there is a belief that sooner or later this issue will get resolved, and there will be some haircut that the company might have to take on the regulatory assets. And that is the reason why you see the valuations which are beaten down, but certainly not pointing towards bankruptcy. So definitely there will be some bounce back in these stocks. And but for a sustainable re-rating, what is essential for companies such as Tata Power is basically liquidation of those regulatory assets through tariff, which will only accelerate improvement in their balance sheet. That holds critical for a sustainable re-rating.
All right. Thanks so much, gentlemen, for joining in. Thanks, Harsh, and thanks, Pankaj, as well, for joining in and giving you a quick take on that one. Nonetheless, both those two stocks, they saw a bit of a relief rally, both of them at the high point of the day.